Hello, everybody. My name is Byron Martin, CEO of Technologize. And today, Dan and I, Dan Morgan, CTO of Technologize, we're going to take a little bit of time and go over the recent SolarWinds Orion hack that occurred in December and what that means to you. So just an intro to everybody that may not know what happened or what's going on there is Orion is a premier network management tool, or SolarWinds has a product called Orion that's a premier network management tool, and they have over 300,000 customers worldwide. Now, sometime before March of 2020, there were some bad actors that got in, Russian-sponsored group, SVR, formerly the KGB, hacked into SolarWinds. At least that's what they're saying. You know, there's some discrepancy on that, but they are saying that that it was this nation-sponsored hacking group. They hacked into SolarWinds, and they embedded a backdoor access into a SolarWinds update, a software update. So anybody that updated the SolarWinds or Orion product within March and June of 2020 would have updated or installed this malware unknowingly. And because of that, there have been many organizations, government, private, that have been breached. And it just came to light last month. So these bad actors were in there for several months, and nobody knew about it. So, Dan, maybe give us a little bit more information on the, what we know about the SolarWinds Orion breach.
The scary part is they infiltrated the supply chain. They were able to compromise the update server. And so you, as the user SolarWinds, actually went in, you downloaded your legitimate update file. It passed your hash checks. Everything was good. So you thought you were okay to install it. So when you installed it, you didn't know anything different and until it came to light from FireEye back in December. So very big deal.
So I think an important point is nobody knew about it, but the only reason somebody knew about it is because FireEye, which is one of the global leaders of cybersecurity, they themselves were breached and hacked. Mm-hmm. And so as they were doing their investigation and looking into it, they then determined and figured out that it was SolarWinds was the means and avenue in which they were breached.
Yep. Yeah, nobody knew, nobody saw anything until there's been a few different reports. So, but more or less what it was they noticed some traffic or some things happening on their internal network that they didn't recognize or that they thought was worth investigating. And so one of their engineers jumped in, and that's when they sounded the alarm.
So tell me again, because we hear about breaches all the time, and we're kind of used to it, and maybe even a little bit numb to it now. You know that. Sure. So to the normal person, why do they really care? How's this really matter?
Well, I think it matters for a couple of reasons. Number one, they infiltrated so many businesses, and businesses that would be very, very, very difficult to infiltrate. Microsoft, FireEye, one of the leading cybersecurity research firms and cybersecurity leaders, they had their own tools stolen and exfiltrated. FireEye actually lost intellectual property during this breach, which isn't something you would see typically. And they got into Microsoft, they got into FireEye, they got into universities, they got into the Department of Justice. A report just came out last few days where the Office 365 server for the DOJ, their email server was compromised and emails were accessed.
I saw. That reminds me. I don't know. I've got some quotes that I'm going to have to share at some point that I was reading from the Associated Press. But one, in summary, said something like, was jokingly saying, before this event, was jokingly saying why Hillary Clinton didn't have her email on through the government channels, and it's because she wanted her email to be secure.
Yeah.
So maybe this is proving that point.
She was right. That's weird.
Well, you also mentioned that several businesses, government edge. Well, actually, let me look. I've kind of got a list right here of just to give a summary of government agencies and companies that we know have been breached, and not just breached, but have had malicious activity occur. So starting with the government agencies, we got the State Department, we have the Treasury Department, we have Homeland Security, Los Alamos and Sandia National Laboratories, where nuclear weapons are developed, the National Nuclear Security Administration, the National Institute of Health, and then others, organizations, or there's Florida State Healthcare Administration. But as far as private, we've got Cisco, Intel, NVIDIA, Belkin, and VMware, and all have seen and saw malicious activity on their networks due to this breach. So now, once they found out about the breach, I know they were sending out patches and everybody. So if they patch and got things taken care of with SolarWinds, are they then okay?
No.
So why not?
Well, number one, there were some patches. I think the general direction is if you had a SolarWinds server, VM, hard bare metal, whatever it was, decommission it, unplug it. That was the advisement. And the reality is that anything that touch, you have to understand what SolarWinds Orion, the platform, does, and what it really does in layman's terms is it is a network management device. It pretty much holds the keys to the kingdom. It has passwords, it has backups, it has configurations. It knows, and it can also, typically it's set up, that is, it's set up to, were you not recording this?
No, well, it's recording there.
Okay.
So we're okay.
Record. No, the SolarWinds Orion, what it really does is a network management tool. It backs up every switch, every router, every firewall that it has configuration or has a password for, anything on your network. And what it really can do is it also can run scripts and push things to it. So if somebody had access to SolarWinds Orion in some capacity, you're going to have to treat anything that SolarWinds Orion touched as compromised. And you're going to need to rebuild all those from scratch. And whether that's just rebuilding a configuration, because you can't really trust your backups either, because your backups may have been modified, your switches may have been modified, and at the very least, you need to get in there and change passwords on every switch in your infrastructure. And now that you don't have a tool like Orion to do it for you, you're going to every switch,
manually having
doing it. It's not a fun project.
Oh my gosh. I think it is, and I do know, for at least from my perspective or my point, when I found out and heard about it, it was really stunning, and it was terrifying, really, quite frankly, because of the depth and breadth of the breach and what it really meant and signified. And so through the last 3 or so weeks, I've been going through kind of a mental, emotional process of, man, what do we, this is scary. But I have also returned to the point of, it's what I've been telling many, many people now is, we need to mitigate as much as we can and do all everything that we can within reason to secure our organizations, but really plan to be breached, plan to be hacked, and have a plan. And I think what really the problem is and why businesses are currently hit so hard and why it impacts them so badly is because they haven't done some of the fundamentals or basics. They don't have a plan. They haven't talked cybersecurity, and they don't have a incident response plan. So they don't have pieces in place for when something does happen. Mm-hmm. And I know whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's a any sort of event within the organization, or if it's a cyber event or outage, whatever it is, anytime that there's a plan, it goes so much better and so much smoother. And in fact, I think a really good example of that is FireEye themselves, because everybody's like, oh my gosh, they got one of the leaders got hacked, and I don't know if it was more like if it was more neener or more just, hey, scary what, if they get hacked, what chance do we have? But I think really what came out, a lot of people, and I saw it, including myself, was their response, both publicly and internally, and how they responded to the breach. And I just thought, wow, they owned it, and they did a great job in the response. And I think, Dan, you were telling me the other day their stock actually went up significantly.
Yeah, I think it was 40% or something since they were.
Yeah, it shot up
early December.
since they got hacked. And I really attribute that to their ability to respond to the event in a positive way. And just, again, they basically said, we've never said that anybody is hack proof, including us. And we will, do our forensic analysis and figure out the details. And this is what happened. And they were just very honest and upfront about all of it. And it was really impressive.
Yeah, I think that really did lead to a lot of it. And I mean, they had their own tools stolen. Tools that they use for their customers were stolen from out from under them. And they had to write patches so you can mitigate any tool that FireEye had. So they had to, not only did they lose the work that they'd done building these tools, then they had to go put in more work to write patches for the exploits that they developed. To
protect everybody from their own tools.
Yeah, I mean, at least they know how to do it, but... Yeah. But, that was double, triple, quadruple the work. And then, probably hundreds or thousands, maybe hours of R&D that they lost in that event. So I guess it's only fitting that they made some of that money back in shareholder prices. But, it probably is. It's because of their transparency and the way they were. But also, I think it goes back to what you said. If FireEye can get hacked, what about the rest of us? And I think it's going to lead to a shift in people maybe paying for more services or paying for better planning, incident response. And an incident response plan is a big deal. And it's a big project. But the reality is that's the first step. You also need to try it. Round table it. Let's see what it looks like if we are put in that situation. You want to practice, you want to train, you want a soldier to train, you want police officers to train, you really got to train for a cybersecurity breach too. And, it's one of those prepare for the worst situations.
Well, and you and I chatted yesterday about the, kind of the general somebody that's not in the cybersecurity world, kind of what their general perception of cybersecurity is. And oftentimes, well, even a lot of people in IT, if they're not in cybersecurity specifically, their perception of cybersecurity is what's the next tool, what's the next firewall, what's the next antivirus or endpoint security, what's that, and that's how they equate their cybersecurity. But in reality, in my mind, cybersecurity is a lot more of what you just said. It's about the incident response planning, the preparation, the training, the testing of the plans, and validating of the plans. And to me, that's a lot more of the cybersecurity. So it hits, the cybersecurity InfoSec department, but it also hits the HR department, and it builds. Part of that is also building that culture of cybersecurity and making it part of the DNA of everybody in the organization.
Well, yeah, because especially in a smaller business, there's a chance that I may not be the one who's around. I may be on vacation in the Bahamas on a beach, maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
You wish.
Yes, I'm trying. But I may not be around. You may not be around, and we need everyone to be able to execute that plan and kind of that order of succession if something happens. We have to protect the business or any business. The owner may not be around, the office manager may not be around. You may need somebody else to kind of at least get the ball rolling, get the process started.
So what kind of plan do we need to have? Is it, hey, I've got a plan, and Dan, when something happens, you got it, you take care of it?
That's a good plan.
That's my plan.
I won't lie, it's a good plan.
So, and Dan, and my other part of the plan is you can't go on vacation. And
that part's a bad plan.
Because in case there's a disaster. So is that, what, give me a...
it's a plan and not a real good one. I don't know if that'll work.
Yeah, so what's a plan? Maybe a little bit more insight on what a plan entails.
Yeah, an incident response plan would be kind of planning for the incident. So, if the incident is a ransomware, for instance, we'll go with that. And, it's what happens when we detect ransomware? What's the next step? So your first, you need to identify what's going on. You need to, and you do that with, detection. And that is a tool usually. With ransomware, usually what you're going to see is a lock on your screen and your files are encrypted. And then you get a ransom note usually in very broken English, telling you to either call this number, or give them half a Bitcoin, which I think Bitcoin was like $30,000 now. So half a Bitcoin's like maybe it's like quarter Bitcoin. It really just depends on who you get and how you get tagged. But they want you to pay Bitcoin. They want you to send them money, and they'll give you an unlock code. And some of these ransomware providers, they're top notch. They have customer service you can call if your unlock code didn't work. Or
can I call the customer service for ransomware?
yeah, you're gonna call most likely a call center in a call center somewhere, and they'll get you taken care of. So it's just ridiculous. But really, you get ransomware. What are your next steps? What do you do? And that's really the plan. How do you detect it? How do you identify how it got there? How do you fix it? And how do you move forward? And what's your plan for that?
Okay.
And that's just one piece of the puzzle. There's other things. You have your cyber liability insurance, your cyber insurance to protect your business in case a cyber attack occurs. Just like you have home insurance, just like you have business insurance. Same thing applies with cyber. I think, typically, as long as you did your part, ransomware is covered in a cyber insurance policy. And talk to your insurance agent about what you can do there. And that's it's a piece. There is no one size fits all solution as people want. You want to buy one tool. You want to have one one line item that you pay for every month, and it's not that easy. It requires a lot of planning, a lot of research, and it really requires somebody that's dedicated to doing it for you.
The ransomware part, I'm seeing articles about it still all the time, and email breaches. And I guess I'm surprised how surprised everybody else is when something does happen, because they're like, oh, and I'm looking at it thinking, duh, obvious, because some of these pieces here, and there's some. And I really don't blame them, because they're busy, they're focused on other things, and cybersecurity is not really hey, let's go do some cybersecurity. We're really excited to do this as a business executive or owner. And, unfortunately though, it's one of those things that, for greater peace of mind and to protect the business, you have that plan in place, and you'll be much better off, and really reflect how good of a leader you are when you come through that, and know that, hey, we can go through something hard and difficult and as ugly as this and still make it through to the other side, and still show a lot of confidence and even build reputation, versus having negative reputation because of a impact or hit. And but yeah, like I said, I'm surprised, and quite frankly, and again, a lot of it is because you don't know what you don't know, and a lot of businesses that we talk to just really don't realize the risk and the vulnerability. And so our job a lot of times is not even technical. It's just talking about the business risk component and the vulnerability. I mean, we had a call yesterday and going over some of the fundamentals with a business here locally. And I mean, it's like having your eyes open. And there's a cartoon comic that I like to use oftentimes, that it says, it's got a guy in there. He's like, well, I hacked your stuff so you would know how vulnerable you are. And the kind of the business executives like, well, we don't want to know. It's better not to know. It's something like that. And I just thought, oh man, because it is hard. But the truth is that the statistics don't lie. The numbers are going up rapidly on the number of attacks and the number of breaches that are occurring. And
the attack surface has gotten so much bigger with people working from home, people taking laptops home, working from their own devices. There's kids at home all the time with devices now, and both on a personal and a professional level, there's a lot more breaches, a lot more hacks, if you will. Password reuse is a big deal, and especially now that all these offices are deploying VPNs to users that aren't users that are secure, or maybe they're deploying VPNs and really shouldn't be, because they don't know what they're doing when they do it. But
yeah, so my 13-year-old son that likes to install video games.
Yeah. Well, good thing they got rid of Flash, so he can't use Flash games anymore. That's too bad.
Well, he keeps, Dad, why this isn't working, or the firewall's blocking this, and
my bad.
Yeah. So Byron here has I've got a kind of a business grade firewall at home, just based on what I do and the protections that I want at home. And yeah, the kids complain about it.
Yeah. My wife does too. She ends up circumventing and turning her Wi-Fi off and connects with data. But hey,
say, hey, you know what? But that's what happens when you're in business, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, just quickly circling back to the SolarWinds element. I met with a group yesterday, and the SolarWinds came up, and we were talking about it and why it was a big deal and why it really mattered for the normal person or business owner, small business owner. And there's a couple things that really came up, because most businesses, unless you're what size would you say, 150, 200 employees or more, you're not really going to be running anything like SolarWinds.
Unless you had 20, 30 switches, probably not.
Yeah. So,
but somebody you may work with might.
That's the point. Can we elaborate on that?
Well, I mean, we all work with Microsoft, and Microsoft had source code that was breached during this hack. Source code, that means if there was a vulnerability, these hackers, Russian or otherwise, who knows, they would have access to the raw code and would know exactly how to circumvent any controls that were in there. And we don't know how much source code they viewed, they exported, whatever they did, but they were able to see source code, and that's pretty crazy. And Office 365 was viewed, source code was viewed, and they breached the DOJ's email server. That's pretty impressive. And so you've got we use Office 365.
Yeah, so
a lot of businesses do.
So I think to drive that home a little bit, it's really, even if you weren't running as a business, even if you weren't running SolarWinds and you didn't have it in your organization, who's in your supply chain, right? What vendors do you use? What vendors, what service providers do you use? And where in that chain did somebody actually use SolarWinds? Hey Dan, we're back here. Just wanted to wrap this up, circle back and hit how the SolarWinds Orion hack impacts the normal guy, right? The normal business. And we were talking about how, well, you may not, that as a company, you may not run SolarWinds, but who else in your vendor supply chain is running and using that software? And there was a few examples that I was going to give. One is, we deal with a lot of healthcare, medical, and there's equipment all over the place that's connected, right? And if the medical equipment vendor or the software vendor for that medical equipment, or and cloud's not immune too, because we use cloud software all over the place for multiple aspects of our business. And
well, the cloud is just a network hosted in a data center. It's no different than the network you have in your office. It's just somebody else's problem, not yours.
Yeah. So somewhere along those lines, I guarantee every single business has been impacted, and or that they have somebody in their supply chain that was impacted by this breach.
Yeah,
there's no doubt in my mind. But the question is, and it's probably going to take some time, is how's that going to trickle down? Is that really going to impact me? Because, or some of our clients or other businesses.
It's going to take forever. It's going to take years to really know what was touched. I mean, they pulled this off. They'd been working on this for at least a year. I mean, it sat in wait. We don't even know when it truly started. No. At least not yet. I'm sure we will one day. But I mean, it sat there for months and months and months and months in some of the world's biggest tech companies.
Yeah, I heard as early as October 2019.
Yeah.
And I mean, the only thing they know for sure is because March is when the updates started going out. Yep. So they know for sure that they were in there by March.
Yep.
So you're right. I mean, who knows how long they've been in there? So it's really has been impacts everybody.
I mean, it took a year roughly to really discover the breach, and it's going to take 5 years to really know 100% of the implications of it. And I think some of the damage can't be undone. Businesses like Cisco, VMware, were compromised. They use SolarWinds, and it may have been the premier. Orion may have been a premier network management solution. I'm interested to see how they come out of this. I think that'll be interesting. But I think I think every small business, medium business was probably impacted in some way. As long as you use a computer, or the network or the internet, you were probably compromised in some way.
Dan, I think that's everybody.
No, there might be like a taxidermist that doesn't do any of that.
Okay.
Taxidermists were probably safe in this.
Well, I think the other, another aspect to me is there's hackers have multiple intentions, right? And it depends on their target. Sometimes it's to steal data. Sometimes it's to embed ransomware to get, money or it's all financially driven, but oftentimes they also they breach SolarWinds not to necessarily get to SolarWinds directly, but to get to who SolarWinds had access to.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times breaches aren't necessarily, I feel in talking with people, they like, oh, well, if a breach happens, we're going to know about it. Well, the reality, the statistics show it's like 6 months before a breach is oftentimes detected. And that's the average.
Yeah. And I think the SolarWinds deal, this whole thing, no tools caught it. That's one thing to look back at. I think no tools caught it. A person caught it, which is cool to say, that humans can still be smarter than the machines they build, which is kind of cool. But the reality is that just buying a tool doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't solve this problem. It doesn't save your butt in this situation. It really, becomes a moot point. It helps maybe remediate in the future, but and so I think a lot of it is people.
So I have a few tips, and we can kind of go over the tips, Dan, and if you have anything to add to that, because what can we do about it, right? And that's the important thing. Yeah, there's this big event. It's maybe a little bit scary and frightening, but when it comes down to it, I want to know what we can do about it. And I think for me, some of the basic things that I came up with was, first, vendor due diligence. A lot of businesses don't do it. We deal with it a lot with some of our clients because it's required by a regulatory body. But create a list of who you buy from, software, hardware, or anything that is connecting to your network, and then list out professional services that you use and who might have access to your network. And some professional services that I thought of at the moment was accounting services, HVAC companies, IT providers. Who all has access to your systems and network? It could be, the medical devices vendor as well, and really do some investigation into those vendors and what is their security stance? What are they doing to protect your business and keep you safe? And what are their protocols and policies? Do they have industry certifications? And what assurances are they providing you that they are doing their best to keep you safe?
Yep. Sorry. Work.
Yeah. People.
All right.
See, that's the problem with Teams here.
Yeah.
They can reach you almost anywhere. Phones. All right. Okay. So
those are good. I think it doesn't have to be as formal as a regulatory body would make it be. I think just knowing who touches your network. That way, when something like SolarWinds breach rolls down, or who knows who's breached next week, you know it. You could quickly reference that and see, okay, you know what, these are the companies that I need to ask, or these are the companies that I need to look for disclosures from, or something like that. That way, you know how you're exposed and what your risk is. And I think that's important to know regardless. It also helps you keep your, kind of keep your house in order. That way you're not, I'm paying for this service to this company. I don't even know what it is. At least it would help you be top of mind, and paying these guys for that. All right.
So another thought or tip would be to have a third party come in and assess and evaluate things. Get a third party to look at it, whether you have internal IT or external IT, outsourced IT. I think it's always good to have, and we have many of our clients that do that, and we're okay with that because, sometimes, we're not perfect, or there's something that we didn't know about, and it really actually provides us and gives us some reassurance and peace of mind that we get somebody that's not biased within either our organization or our client's organization that's going to, want to gloss over that, that's. And so I think that really helps as well to have a third party take a look at it and validate things on what is there and maybe what could be improved upon.
Yeah, you always want to know where you're deficient, and every business that has a network or has any kind of data or computers or whatever on site, there's gonna be some exposure. If you talk to the internet, if you have email, you're gonna be exposed in some way, shape, or form, and so you want to see having a third party review that and see, okay, there's this hole that we didn't notice or that we overlooked or whatever, and we can help. Let's resolve it. Let's fix it. There's always going to be exposure as long as you're connected to the internet. And even if you're not connected to the internet, maybe your website is the hole, and that's because of the whoever you're using for web hosting or whoever built your site now hasn't been updated or whatever. And so that's the hole. Now, your payment portal can be compromised. So it isn't always just about what's on your network. It's all tied together.
Well, I mean, even just you were mentioning again the other day, earlier in the week, one of the testings that clients that we were going through some testing on, and that was simply putting some USB drives out in the parking lot. Shh, don't tell anybody. But
USB drops.
They were our client, and we had authorization to do that. So, but we wanted to see, and our client wanted to see who would fall for the trap of taking one of those unknown USB drives or devices and plugging it into the network.
I'm gonna get him again. I'm gonna get him one time.
Okay, you keep trying, but they're pretty well trained.
Yeah, that's one tip here. This is a tip. If you find a USB drive, do not plug it into your computer.
If you don't know whose it is, throw it away.
Yeah.
Or turn it into lost and found. Leave it at that. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up then for today, Dan. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you contributing today. My name is Byron Martin, CEO of Technologize, and this is Dan Morgan, CTO of Technologize. And you can find out more information about us at technologize.com. We are a premier IT and cybersecurity provider in the Tri-Cities, Eastern Washington area and Eastern Oregon, as well as Bend, Oregon. And this is something that we enjoy talking about, but we also feel that there's a big gap and need for basic understanding for people. Basically, I call it cybersecurity in plain English, if I can even speak English. Plain English. And because there's a lot of technical stuff out there, and I appreciate your time for listening today, and we'll be signing off. Thank you. Bye.